As Badri said, our readings are taken from Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. This week's title, How Democratic is Truth? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. We live in an age when people assume that knowledge should be available equally to all. In matters susceptible of judgment by normal common sense, however, everyone knows that there are exceptions. Access to a control room for intercontinental ballistic missiles is limited by universal consent to a very few. Access to the controls of a passenger airline is limited to those with the necessary knowledge of operating them, and also to those with the proper authorization. If people don't see the disadvantages of making more subtle knowledge universally available, it is only because they are ignorant of the risks involved. In the case of subtle knowledge, the main disadvantage in making it universally available is the harm it might do to one who isn't ready for it and who might even mock it. True, by mocking the truth, he might undermine the faith of a few truth seekers, but then such tests can also be beneficial as a means of strengthening faith. Again, true, the clever doubter and misrepresentation of those truths may dissuade a few seekers from following the spiritual path. But if a seeker is really sincere, he will recognize the truth eventually because it resonates with his own being. No, the greatest problem accrues to the shallow doubter himself. To give him an opportunity to affirm his ignorance might only estrange him even more from the truth, delaying the time when he will turn, as all people must eventually, to the light. Thus, the scriptures advise not secrecy, but discretion in sharing the truth. Jesus Christ says in the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 7, "Give not that which is holy unto dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you." And Sri Krishna says in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, "Never speak of these truths to one who is without self-control and devotion, who renders no service, who does not care to hear, or who speaks ill of me." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Whoa. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here with you today. I'm Gita, and I'm joined today by Badri, as well as Lorna and Surendra. I am going to do something I have never done, and I probably won't do again. This is a family tradition, and I see my daughter is actually not here, so I may have to do it again one time. Okay, why did the minister bring a ladder to church? Because the truth is up there, and he wanted to get to the bottom of it. It's a very sacred family tradition on the McGilloway side. For those of you who have been to Ananda, Seattle, you will know. I'm really happy to be here. I feel like it has been far too long. July swooped by, and for a number of reasons, I've missed you all greatly. So it's wonderful to be here. So, is truth democratic? As a political science student in college, I could really go a lot of places with this one, but I'm going to stick to what we're actually here to talk about. I did want to touch on, in the reading, the examples at the beginning that Swami Kriyananda offers to us about, a doctor or the control room of an airplane, or the bomb, the big red button, that you would want somebody with the knowledge and the discernment and the certification to be there. I was thinking, we could fast forward to today and say, when you go on the internet and you try to determine what it is you have based on the symptoms that you have, WebMD, almost always it's wrong and much more dire than what's actually happening. And so, there it is, context. If we have not the knowledge to understand what is here, we can make lots of mistakes. Interesting twist with AI, of course, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. The technology continues to keep us on our toes. But coming back to the spiritual truths, I think it is very important to consider self-realization. The tool that we've been offered on this path is Kriya Yoga. And many, many of us, especially new on this path, the thought occurs to us, why isn't this just given, to thousands? Why is, broadly on the internet, in a book? And in fact, it is today. You can get those things in that way. But in this tradition here at Ananda, we follow what Swami Kriyananda offered to us as our initiation into Kriya, which is what our guru, Yogananda, offered to us. And there are many, many really important reasons for that. If you've read the autobiography of a yogi, Yogananda talks in his chapter on Kriya Yoga. He touches on this. Most, interestingly, I think there's several interesting things about this, but he says there is an ancient yogic purpose. It is sacred and it cannot be shared except by means of a Kriya yogi to an initiate. But that there's something deep and sacred there. He also talks about how if we're ill-prepared for the practice of Kriya Yoga, what it does, he describes, is it allows us to be prepared to be a channel, a conduit for divine consciousness, which in terms of level of energy, the difference that he offers is, every day you and me, we walk around with a 50-watt light bulb. Kriya Yoga offers us the opportunity to become a 1 billion-watt light bulb. And turning that light bulb on without the proper preparation can do a lot of damage, can fry a nervous system, can do all number of things. So it's just like flying the airplane requires, our son is very set right now on being a pilot. So we've had tons of conversations about what it takes. But the level of knowledge, there's the practice, and then a pilot actually has to understand the mechanics of the airplane that they're flying. I have a dear friend who grew up at Ananda with me, who is a pilot for Alaska Airlines. So in my son's interest, I peppered her with so many questions so that I could answer some. And she said that they're certified for one particular model plane at a time, because that's how deep their knowledge has to be on the mechanics in order to safely pilot the plane. Well, here we are. We really need to understand the mechanics of our airplane, which is the spine, in order to safely navigate all the way to infinity, to omnipresence, and to be able to be a conduit for the billion-watt light bulb, which is an exciting prospect, but also one to take a deep breath and take one step at a time. There's many, I pulled many stories, mostly from the autobiography of a yogi, because it's such a treasure. And if you haven't read it, enjoy. It'll be a journey that will change your life. If you have, it's very fun to wake up and just open a page and see what you find, right? So that happened to me a few times in the weeks leading up to this. But one story on this topic that I thought was so relevant is the story of, I want to get his name right, Afzal Khan. He was a young man in India who, he was Muslim. He was walking along, and he meets a great yogi. And the yogi recognizes in him past very good karma, and so offers to him a secret yogic technique. This sounds like a setup for a really big test for somebody. And it was. So the technique allowed Afzal to call upon an astral plane, an energy realm. So in the yoga tradition, we talk about the physical plane that we can all see and touch, the astral plane, which is the plane of energy where spirit without the body exists, the causal plane, which is the thought consciousness. It's like veils between us and omnipresence. And then Brahma, omnipresence, is veil-free. So Afzal was given a secret yogic technique to reach and connect into the astral plane and be able to manifest anything onto the physical plane temporarily. The great sage who gave him this gift warned him, use it for good, or there is a seed of karma in you that if you water it, you will use this for bad. It will draw you down and back into delusion. So for 20 years, he used it for good. But in that time, he gained notoriety, popularity, ego got bigger and bigger. He wasn't maybe ready for this level of power and started to use it for bad and went from famous to infamous. Because now he used the power actually to steal things. So he found a spirit in that realm willing to help him, and he would touch anything that he touched. He could then call on this spirit, and the spirit would grab that thing later and deliver it to him. And then it wouldn't disappear because it was a real thing. So 20 years go by, he's stealing things from everybody. He really thinks he's hot stuff because he can. And then he's walking down the road, and a really old beggar is walking opposite him, carrying a ball of gold. He feels no compassion. He is so, lost inwardly. Feels no compassion for this old beggar, touches that ball of gold, walks on, calls on his little magic spirit to deliver him that ball of gold. And then instantly, that little old beggar transforms into the guru who had given him the gift of the technique and called him on the carpet. And he realized, this is obviously somebody who had a lot of great power and positive karma to receive a gift like this. So Yogananda described, it was an instantaneous transformation of realization. Oh no. and he offered to do his tapasya, his penance, by meditating for the rest of his life on God in the mountains. And his guru offered to him a little sliver of his original gift, that he could conjure up food and clothing so that he could live up in the mountains and do his penance for the remainder of his existence. So, a great warning tale. And if you have not read the autobiography of a yogi, it might seem pretty fantastical too. There's a lot of pretty fantastical tales. I'm going to share another one this morning. But it's still, even though it's not something we bump into in our everyday, presumably, it's a very important instruction to us. When we're not inwardly ready for a power that is given to us, we have quite a lot of work to do to not allow that power to draw us down. And really, we see this in our everyday lives all the time outside of us. And hopefully we can even see it in ourselves, because that is the work of introspection. But power corrupts. We see it all around. People rise to the top, and then they use that for, selfish gain or means, and we all see the consequences every day. It doesn't have to be a magic gift for that lesson to be so obvious, but it happens on these subtle realms. And it's also an example of how powerful the deeper, subtle teachings of yoga are. When you go to India, that was for me the life changer experience, to really see what the possibilities of those deeper yogic powers are. Because we can read about them, we can observe what is observable in our world. Their magic happens every day. And so there you see and you hear more and more of what these subtle techniques can afford to people. And then, of course, in India, in their tradition, if all the great, terrible people were once great yogis that fell into delusion, and they're actually called demons. But Ravana, all the bad guys in the Bhagavad Gita, they're all great yogis whose ego has drawn them back down. So it's a warning to us that as we develop our inner powers, we gain power outwardly. And we need to continuously be humble, focusing on our devotion, on our guru-disciple relationship, as the reading suggests in the Bhagavad Gita. It's that devotion and that discipline. Give it not to one without that devotion and that discipline, because those elements are required in order to not abuse those subtle truths as we discover them inwardly, which Kriya Yoga will unlock the discovery for us. So, okay, I want to talk a little bit about, given that I shared a pretty fantastical story, one thing that I felt important to remember is that our faith, our project of self-realization, needs to be one step at a time. And that's, again, sort of the theme and the warning in the reading. If we take too many steps beyond that, it is very easy to get sort of fanatical. So the yoga gives us direct experience. And as we have the natural unfoldment of that direct experience, we can build our faith by taking one step past that. So many, many, many people will read Autobiography of a Yogi and need to set some of the stories on a shelf for later, because they are quite a bit beyond, quite a few steps beyond personal experience to really wrap our heads around. But then there are many things that are closer to maybe our own experience. And it is true, as we practice, these things become more understandable, and we can feel into their subtle truths and understand them further. A story, the doubter in the latter part of our reading was an interesting thing to sit with in this teaching, because it's not somebody who's doubting me that is so much the problem as that person going through that doubt, what they're going through when they are faced with a truth and it's beyond what they're ready for or open to. It's that rejection that can be so hard. So the master, the guru, Divine Mother, as we open up, is going to give us the experiences that push us just past our edge, but not beyond it. There's an amazing story of a resurrection like that of Jesus, also in the autobiography of a yogi. And it's Sri Yukteswar telling Yogananda of something that happened that he witnessed, that Lahiri Mahashai, his guru, did. So Sri Yukteswar, this one, was studying with Lahiri Mahashai, this guru, that's his guru, and his fellow disciple Rama. They were devoted to Lahiri Mahashai together. And then one day Rama became deathly ill with Asiatic cholera. Sri Yukteswar hurries to Lahiri Mahashai and says, he's dying, you must intercede. And Lahiri, in perfect poise, says he will recover. He will be fine. Sri Yukteswar goes back to his dear friend, and he looks far worse on his deathbed. And Sri Yukteswar is so concerned, again returns to Lahiri. Lahiri, he's become worse. Please, please, please intercede. And Lahiri again repeats, he will live. Sri Yukteswar returns to Rama. Rama is dying, moments from death. The doctors have abandoned him, and in fact, he dies. Sri Yukteswar is horrified, and as anyone would be, running back to his guru in tears, shaken. And Lahiri has him sit and meditate with him all through the night in perfect peace. All this time, Lahiri, in his way, is in perfect centeredness. But Sri Yukteswar describes himself as, waves of grief and emotion. All through the night they sit there, and finally, at dawn, Lahiri opens his eyes and said, "You didn't tell me that you needed a physical sign." And Sri Yukteswar didn't know, he wasn't conscious that he had this seed of doubt that without a physical act, Rama wouldn't live. So Lahiri tells Sri Yukteswar to go get a little vial and fill it with oil and hurry over to Rama and put 7 drops into his mouth of this oil, and then he would be revived. And, Sri Yukteswar is hopeful, but it's been 12 hours, 16 hours, something since Rama's death, so only hopeful because the guru said so, not for any logical reason. And runs over and opens Rama's mouth. He's been dead for a number of hours, and puts the 7 drops, and Rama gets right up as if nothing happened. And they walk together over to Lahiri and sit to meditate at his feet and prostrate themselves. And Lahiri all the time. And Lahiri then explains to Sri Yukteswar, this was helping you. You had a seed of doubt. I've helped you overcome and release that. And that's what the masters are here to do for us. They give us a test. It brings up our doubts. We need to walk through those doubts, staying centered as best we can. Sri Yukteswar's description of himself being rocked by the emotion is a little comforting, given that he's, a guru, an avatar, a great yogi. So if even he gets rocked by his doubts and his drama, it's all right that we do a little bit. But we step forward one step at a time, holding on to the faith that we have developed through our yoga practice, through our practice of life, through our learning, and do what we can, step by step. And the divine hand behind it will teach us that that is who is in charge. At times, of course, it can feel a little bigger than we can handle, but I think we all probably love that saying, what is it? Like, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. Don't say that to somebody going through a lot. Just say it to yourself when you're going through a lot. I don't think it's so appreciated outward coming in. But for ourselves, it can be really helpful. So I'm running out of time, and I want to close with a whispers so that we can just feel into the presence of the masters and the teaching of, where we find those truths in our own selves and in our connection with the divine. So this is a prayer demand from Yogananda. Demand for the pearls of wisdom obtained in the sea of meditation. Divine Father, teach me to dive deep for the pearls of thy wisdom in the ocean of meditation. Teach me to plunge headlong, protected in the diving suit of conscience, that the sharks of passion may not destroy me. If by one or two divings I find not thy wisdom pearls, let me not call the sea of meditation devoid of any pearl of thy wisdom. Teach me rather to find fault with my own diving. Teach me to dive again and again in meditation, deeper and deeper always, until I find thine immortal pearls of wisdom and of joy divine. Thank you.